Let me share a few thoughts before I hand over to my colleague Joet Smuts, PyProp's Head of Data and Analytics. Joet is also the General Manager of PyProp Capital, our financial advisory intermediary services company. As we enter the latter part of 2020, most South African businesses and individuals are feeling financially strained due to the far-reaching consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. The same is true in the property rental industry, as landlords, tenants and agents alike are forced to have difficult conversations about affordability, sometimes renegotiating the terms and conditions of the lease agreement and, of course, upholding their commitments. When times are tough, and even under normal circumstances, it's important for all parties to a rental contract, the landlord, the tenant and the rental agency, to deal with a trusted payment service provider. Why? For starters, we need to eliminate human error and, of course, we need to eliminate creative bookkeeping. Electronic payment security is more crucial than ever for rental agents in the COVID-19 era, as the use of cash has plummeted and businesses are racing to accept money online. According to a management consulting firm, Oliver Wyman, the volume of online payments has soared globally and so has online fraud. There has been a 700% increase in online fraud since March 2020. Try to renew your professional liability cover and you will definitely feel the difference in your monthly premiums. Any agency that handles online transactions or client funds, whether it be manually or electronically, has a duty to ensure that those funds are kept safe. Agencies that are new to taking online payments must have suitable security systems in place to prevent online attacks and fraud. As a general rule, information should never be passed unencrypted. Personal and financial information of consumers should be protected with rigorous data center security and proper backup. Why is protecting sensitive information so important? Firstly, there's reputational risk. Theft of data can be as damaging to an agency as financial theft, and it can carry equally heavy fines. Then there's operational risk. Losing information can disrupt your business operation and significantly damage your client relationships. Then, of course, there is liability. The possibility of civil claims and even criminal charges should not be forgotten. Let's talk about people, potentially the weakest link in many businesses. The most advanced cyber attacks exploit human vulnerabilities as often as they exploit technological weaknesses. Attackers often pose as trusted senders or as trusted recipients to steal information or to divert funds. The property industry cannot afford to become complacent when it comes to the handling of client funds or trust funds. The rental market needs to increase its focus on tightening up on electronic and human security measures, as relying on one or the other is no longer adequate. How do we do that? Better training for estate agents and other employees to recognize attempts at theft or fraud is important. For example, how to identify phishing attacks. By employing more automated systems and moving away from manual processes is important. Agencies should commit to regular external audits and they should submit their systems and networks to vigorous security testing. The segregation of duties is very important so that individuals are not responsible for a single transaction from start to end. Let's talk about the importance of proper trust fund separation. All rental agents and property managers are aware of the legal requirement for trust funds to be held separately from business funds. As per Section 32, subsection 8 of the Estate Agency Affairs Act of 1976, client monies in trust form part of neither PyProp's estate nor that of the agency's balance sheet, and that ensures proper protection. For example, an agency's creditor can never attach trust funds if it is in a proper trust account. However, simply conforming to the provisions of Section 32 of the Estate Agency Affairs Act is not enough to have the proper level of segregated trust funds that will keep tenants, landlords and estate agents safe. It is an act dating back to 1976, back when the internet did not even exist. So, even with basic separation, in other words, a separate trust account and a different business account, clients' funds are still pooled, making it very difficult to identify whose funds are being paid out. As I explained in an article before, a trust fund should not be like a bucket full of water. All tenant funds flow into the same main trust account. It is like water flowing from separate sources into the same bucket. Imagine a bucket full of water. Each month's funds are scooped out and distributed, but is each scoop delivered to the correct recipient, and is it in a correct measure? Without separating individual clients' money, there is no way of knowing which money belongs to whom. You could be paying property A's expenses with property B's money. This requires next level trust fund separation because life happens. Some tenants will pay early, some tenants will pay late, some will pay too much, and others will pay too little or not at all. Who's responsible for all of this reconciliation? And what happens when monies are supposed to be retained in trust amidst all of these movements? Yes, there is the tenant's damage deposit, which is supposed to be applied or refunded at the end of the lease term, depending on the property condition. And then often, some of the landlord's money should also be retained for repairs and maintenance during the subsistence of the lease. So it's landlord money, tenant's money, and moving trust monies. Estate agents should not get this mixed up. Imagine that within a trust account bucket, there's a little bucket for every property into which only funds that belong to that particular bucket or property can go. Each little bucket is further subdivided with space for funds held for the landlord and funds held for the tenant while the other funds are moving. Does your PropTech enable you to manage that level of complexity? Let's consider PropTech differentiators. What do we see in the market? Live integration with South Africa's banking system guarantees that beneficiaries are only paid once funds have been cleared. Expenses are only paid with money meant for a specific property, and any money retained for the landlord or the tenant is separately stored and accounted for in real time. In a protected bank-integrated trust account environment, a PropTech company should offer transparent, real-time tenant and landlord reporting, as well as permanent or undeletable audit logs. Incoming payments should be identified systematically and pre-reconciled to each individual property. Outgoing payments to a supplier of services or to a landlord should be paid automatically based on payment rules set up by the estate agency, and that should take place as soon as the funds have been cleared. Multiple payments should be possible at the click of a button, the approval button, and the receipts should be automatically sent to tenants and landlords, just like the invoices were automatically sent earlier. Proof of payment should be stored securely on the platform for the next round of audits, and your service provider should be assisting you with your next audit. Undeletable audit trails should always be available to tell you who was responsible for what part of every single transaction. Let's talk about using PropTech to your advantage. Property is and will always be a business of and a business for people. Technology should serve the industry rather than disrupt the industry. In other words, technologies should be an enabler rather be a disruptor of our real estate sector. A key principle to consider is who is in charge. Is your PropTech telling you what to do next, or are you telling your tech what to do for you? Do you need to wait for somebody to download or manipulate something before you can carry on with your business? Or do you have to copy and paste information? True automation is when the software works for you and with you. So the value of automation is that it boosts your productivity, it saves you time, and it saves you money. When you use automated technology, you can redeploy skills and you can spend time on high value activities. Remember that time is a very scarce commodity. Most of all, automation delivers an awesomer customer experience, and you can decide whether the customer is you as the user or whether the customer is the landlord and the tenant. All of the parties to a rental agreement can benefit from automation and enhanced or improved customer experience. I trust that you've gained some new insights, and I thank you for listening. I'll now hand you over to my colleague, Joet Smuts.
Thanks, Jan. Hi, everyone. Because of our main business, we are able to collate data and spot trends in the rental market. We publish a quarterly rental index that you can subscribe to on our website if you'd like to get the latest market data as soon as it becomes available. Much of what I will be chatting to you about today can also be found in the rental index, along with many other interesting topics. First, let's look at what happened to rental growth patterns in the first 6 months of this year. So when we measure growth, we measure it year on year. In other words, the growth percentage for March 2020 measures the increase in rent between March 2019 and March 2020. So in this graph, we can clearly see the effect of lockdown on rental growth rates, which is in blue, as well as on inflation, which is in red. Rental growth has been trending below inflation for some time, at least the last 2 years, but you can clearly see that both of these dipped after March when lockdown began. So if inflation is just a way to measure an increase in overall price, why did it all of a sudden increase at a much lower pace, as we can see in this graph? Well, demand is a big driver of price increases, and in the first months of lockdown, consumers were only able to buy essentials, and many consumers also suffered a loss of income, whether that was partially or fully. So both of these factors lowered demand for goods and products in general, and that is partially why we see such low inflation rates for the second quarter of the year, April to June. Rental growth is effectively the inflation of rental prices, right? So it should not be surprising that the rate at which rent increases also slow during this time. Usually rent increases for many reasons. Tenants move to nicer places or bigger places or places closer to work that are more expensive. Much of this happens because tenants can afford to move, but with many experiencing a loss of income, they now can't afford these higher rental prices, and this decrease in demand causes the low rental growth that we see in the graph. Something also happened on the supply side during lockdown. So because of the travel restrictions, many landlords had short-term rental properties on Airbnb and other similar sites sitting empty, and they decided to move their rental properties back to the long-term rental market. So they essentially flooded the market. Both the lower demand and the higher supply put downward pressure on rental prices, right? This will continue to be the case after lockdown. It will take some time for the economy to recover, so we don't expect to see a big rebound anytime soon. So how does this affect rental agents and landlords, you may ask? So if you're a rental agent, your commission is directly linked to the rental price, since it's usually a percentage of rent instead of a rand amount, right? So that means that your commission income that was already increasing at a level below inflation is now increasing even slower. The fact that your commission is growing slower than inflation also means that in real terms, your purchasing power is less, so you are essentially becoming a bit poorer. If you're a landlord, you must keep in mind that you probably won't be getting the rental increases that you used to get, since affordability is now a more important consideration for tenants than before. And since there's an oversupply of rental properties for tenants to choose from, you have a little less bargaining power. It is worth noting that we are speaking about rental prices and rental growth observed nationally, but not all provinces follow this trend. There are different economic variables that affect rental growth in different provinces, and even in different cities within a province. Student housing is one such variable, as is economic activities like mining. We usually do a breakdown in the rental index so you can have a look in there for provincial rental growth rates and also arrears data. If rental growth was one aspect that was negatively affected by lockdown, it should come as no surprise that arrears was another one. Now, when we talk about arrears, we talk about two different metrics. We first look at the percentage of tenants who are in arrears, and then we also look at the size of the arrears. Both of these give an indication of how tenants paid their rent during lockdown. So let's have a look at this first graph. This shows the percentage of tenants in arrears from January to August this year. We can see that the number increased significantly from March to May, right? Expected. Many people returned to work again in June, so we see that this number dropped slowly down from June to August. The increase in this figure means, of course, that tenants who were never in arrears now actually owed rental money, either because they couldn't afford their rent or because they only paid partially. And while we've seen a decrease since May, there are still more tenants in arrears now than before lockdown. In March, only 19% of tenants were in arrears, and in August, this figure is still closer to 23%. This peaked at 26% in May, so we are at least a bit lower than that high point. Looking at the next graph, so when we calculate the average size of arrears, we look at it relative to the average rent. So if the average arrear size is 50%, it means that on average, a tenant who's in arrears is half a month's rent behind. When we look at the average arrears percentage over time this year, we can see that this metric, not surprisingly, also increased substantially from March to June, and then it stabilized over the last few months. For June through August, the average arrear size was at 105%, so that is just over 1 month's rent. To put it in perspective, this figure was under 80% in March. If we take both these metrics into consideration, one can actually argue that tenants who had smaller amounts outstanding paid up. That is why the percentage of tenants in arrears dropped, but not the average arrears size. I hope that makes sense. The tenants who are now still in arrears will most likely struggle a bit more to get their arrears down. Because remember that if a tenant stopped paying his rent for a few months and is now paying his rent in full again, they will have to fork out extra money to reduce that arrear size. And in this economic climate, it might be a bit tricky. So how does this affect rental agents and landlords, you may ask? Rental agents don't earn commission on rent that they haven't collected yet. And landlords, of course, don't receive any rental income if that tenant didn't pay rent. This means that both rental agents and landlords might experience cash flow problems. We've also seen from PayProp stats that the higher the outstanding rental amount, the lower the probability of you collecting that money in full. That means that the quicker you get onto your arrears, the higher the probability of you actually getting that money from your tenants. So you need to have a handle on it from the very beginning, and you need to have a plan to manage it, whether that is taking legal action, sending regular reminders, or making a payment arrangement with your tenant that they are actually able to commit to during this time. I think it's clear that as a landlord or a rental agent in this current climate, you must now weigh your options a bit differently. It will be more difficult going forward to find good tenants, since the financial implications of this lockdown will affect tenants for a while, even after lockdown is totally lifted, and this might even be reflected in their credit scores for some time to come. As we mentioned earlier, tenants have more options of properties to rent now as well. So you have a little less bargaining power, and you'll have to compete harder for these good tenants. What do these trends mean for a rental business? What business decisions can you make now that you know what the market looks like? 3 things. First, make sure that the technology you use can help you manage your arrears with accurate reporting, reminders, maybe even some other services. Secondly, make sure that you vet your tenants properly. Look at their credit history and their rental history. Check their references. Ask for their bank statements. Just do a proper vetting of your tenants. Bad tenants are not great to have, and they are expensive to get rid of. And lastly, make sure that as many repetitive tasks as possible are automated so that you can use your time to grow your business and your bottom line and not spend it doing mindless admin. Now over to my colleague Sarah, PayProp's National Head of Sales, who will talk more about the ideal work environment.
Hi, I'm Sarah Whitehead, Head of Sales here at PayProp South Africa. Today I'll be sharing on 3 important focus areas of anyone involved in the management of property: efficiency, service excellence, and growth. Efficiency means so many different things, and each organization is unique. We understand this here at PayProp. There are a lot of processes and people involved in the management of a rental portfolio. There's a lot to get to, and you need to know how to get to what by when. Efficiency is key, as using the least amount of resources help you achieve the greatest results. Efficiency allows you to save time, and we all well know money and time are quintessentially scarce resources. Efficiency can be the difference in taking more than a week to invoice tenants, check bank statements, reconcile incoming monies, check missing payments, matching different amounts, to simply spending a handful of hours over a month end making a few clicks. PayProp offers a dashboard that tracks your most important KPIs, highlighting to you the financial details of your rental portfolio and any urgent tasks to be attended to on one easy-to-take-in live notepad, if you will. Efficiency is automating repetitive monthly tasks, invoicing, payments, reminders. On PayProp, you create an invoice once, tell the platform to repeat it for the duration of the tenancy. Your job is now essentially done with regards to that tenancy. The platform will send out the invoice, collect the monies, set up the outgoing payments to be approved. Once you've approved the pre-set up payments, the platform will pay the beneficiaries, send them payment notices, update the tenant statements, update the owner statements, send them all out, and auto-reconcile your trust account. Efficiency allows you to provide the right environment. When team members have the best possible processes in place that are easy to use and save time, productivity and job enjoyment increases. Real-time data gives everyone the same base to work from, no matter where they are and what device they are using. Remote work is a breeze. Free up people to do what they're best at. Ultimately, efficiency equals happy team members and, as a result, a healthy organization. Service excellence, on the other hand, gains you happy tenants and happy landlords. Being more customer-focused and providing service excellence is becoming a significant advantage. It helps business to win clients in a competitive environment. To assist with this, streamlining processes helps you to never forget to send an invoice, receipt, reminder, or statement again. It keeps tenants, owners, and agents 100% up to date with all transactions. PayProp stands for exactly that: 100% accuracy, 100% of the time. Service excellence is enabling a better tenant experience. It's giving your tenants choice and convenience with multiple payment methods, and our solution makes provision for just that. It goes without saying, landlords' investment properties are an extremely valuable asset. Our solution assists you in delivering service excellence to them to retain their business and to gain even more landlords. With accurate landlord reporting, same-day settlements regardless of bank, automated communication in real time, everything done correctly, with the added benefits such as a property account and a landlord app, automation greatly adds to your service excellence. My third and final focus area is why you're ultimately here today: for growth. The bottom line of business automation is, well, the bottom line. Automating processes saves time, allows you to grow without additional overheads, and to future-proof your business. It may be time to start exploring automation and its accompanying return on investment to take your business to the next level. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chantal, Head of Client Services here at PayProp South Africa. In closing today, I would like to add to what Sarah has just spoken about when she spoke about service excellence. Communication and transparency adds to service excellence, and then also automation becomes more important in growing your portfolio. Communication and transparency has always been a cardinal pillar in any organization. During COVID, it has become more apparent that if we want to stay ahead and keep our doors open, we need to communicate even better. We have seen an adoption in tech tools throughout the world, which allows everyone to be in touch and in the know-how. But what does this mean for you managing a rental portfolio? Communication and transparency to landlords are vital. They want to know, how much is my tenants in arrears? How much did you receive this month for rental? Are the tenants' deposits safe? With PayProp, this is all possible at no fee to you or your landlord. Owners are up to date every second of the day. The Owner app allows your owner a view on the property you manage on his behalf. It gives him access to documents you have loaded, contractors' invoices, lease agreements, mandates, the list goes on. Your owner has real-time access to his statements, show him the tenant's deposit is safe, and give him insights and oversight on the tenant's statement, eliminating him to having to phone you, but more importantly, allowing him the peace of mind that his investment is safe with you. All this at his convenience. Unforeseen expenses. How we all hate those. We all know that at the most inconvenient time, the pool pump will break or the trusted geyser needs to be replaced. Keeping money aside for emergency repairs will not only allow you to give fast and efficient service to your tenants, but most importantly, it will assist your landlord. Keeping small portions of rental back, with your landlord's consent, of course, can assist you in managing these pesky expenses. This can reduce the time you have to spend on finalizing repairs. But best of all, you will not need to phone your owner on the 23rd of the month and ask him to pay the contractor. You are his asset manager. You manage such an important asset for him. Make it as convenient as possible without creating more strain on you. PayProp allows you to keep money back for your landlord in an interest-bearing account, which he can see and monitor through his Owner app without any effort from you. What else do we need to consider when managing a rental portfolio? Deposits, of course. All deposits need to be invested in a Section 32(2) interest-bearing account. At the end of the lease agreement, most tenants get the benefit of the interest that was earned throughout the period. Trying to calculate interest when all the deposits are in one account becomes a full-time job. You can't be stuck in the office. You need to be out there sourcing landlords to manage their assets. PayProp allows you to invest the deposit, earning interest, and being visible to your tenants all the time with no extra effort from you. Sarah said it so nicely. Money and time is quite essentially scarce resources. Ensuring that you are managing your arrears to the best of your ability has always been a focus area for anyone involved in managing properties. This can be a tedious process if you don't have the right tools. Making sure you send out late payment reminders via SMS and emails. Try doing this for 40 tenants. Being able to send a letter of demand when you have no alternative recourse. Making sure that the tenant's arrears amounts are always up to date without having to reconcile all statements that takes 4 hours. Having the right tools to do your job optimally has always been important. PayProp gives you access to a state-of-the-art letter of demand, all at just one click. It allows you to communicate arrears to your tenants, all at just one click. And all of this can be done in front of a show house, on your mobile phone, in the pursuit of growing your rental portfolio. One platform, yet all the convenience of full. Communication, service delivery, transparency, automation, and convenience. We thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you so much.
There's many ways to describe PayProp. I must admit, on occasions I've used the word magic.
PayProp is the most important tool we use for our business.
It's far easier and it's less labor and time consuming than what we had previously.
When I set my company up, I knew the first thing I was going to get was PayProp. It was my very first investment, very first thing I got was PayProp.
The business challenge that led me to start using PayProp was the time wasted in the rent collection process.
The process before PayProp was all manual.
Now, one screen, press of a button, it's done.
We process around about 50 rents on the first of every month. It takes us now between 5 and 10 minutes.
We've got, I think it's probably 70% of our franchises on PayProp, which just gives us that, I think, not just consistency, but that peace of mind as a franchisor that we know our franchisees are transacting on a system that's bulletproof, it's foolproof.
It's so easy to use that when I got married in Greece last year, I sat the morning of the wedding and did all of the payments on my mobile phone. It took literally 2 minutes.
Since I started using PayProp a year ago, our business has doubled.
Since PayProp, our work has been cut in half.
From a fiduciary duty perspective, PayProp has really helped me to sleep at night. PayProp allows me to spend more time with my family.
The support team are an absolute lifeline for me.
It was a huge game changer for us.
I'll never come away from PayProp because it does what I need and I love using it.